Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Heidi, and today, do you often find yourself feeling run down and stressed and just too busy to really do anything else? Well, if you've answered yes to all those questions, probably you're alive and you're probably an adult living in a modern country. Because basically everyone feels stressed and run down and that they don't have time for anything. And when someone asks you like, hey, do you want to go to this thing, this party, this event? Your answer is probably no, I'm too busy. Well, I am here today to talk about hobbies. And the reason I talk about hobbies and being stressed and being too busy is because really everyone nowadays, we're all like doing a bunch of other things. We're working, taking care of a family, and emails and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And all of those things keep us really occupied, and they keep us from doing other things that we enjoy, like hobbies. Now, you might be thinking, well, I enjoy my random internet searching at 9 p.m. when I could be doing something else, or the Netflix binging, or I don't know, whatever else you do. But honestly, as much as I enjoy doing those things as well, and I like to veg out, and relax, I've been reading about hobbies, and I've kind of found that hobbies are something that can be relaxing because typically you enjoy them, but then also rejuvenating. And honestly, they can be more rejuvenating than just Netflix binge watching, which I know. Don't turn off the podcast. I'm not telling you to not Netflix binge. I'm not telling you to not internet search or, scroll through Instagram. I'm just saying, maybe consider picking up a hobby instead. Just one. I'm not saying you have to, become a jack of all trades and do woodworking and pottery and soccer. I'm not saying that. Maybe just try one, just maybe a simple craft. Anyway, I'm hoping that this episode will encourage you to do just that. And I want to start off by defining what a hobby is. So, the Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines a hobby as a pursuit outside of one's regular occupation, engaged in especially for relaxation. So really, a hobby is something that is relaxing, and it's not something that you have to do, but rather something that you want to do because, you love doing it. And as a result of doing these types of activities, hobbies can take many forms, something that you enjoy. So it could be stamp collecting, gardening, woodworking, playing tennis, even traveling. I feel a lot of people, especially people my age who are in the millennial category, really, I feel like it's usually millennials or those who are retired, when asked, will often say that their hobby is traveling. So I feel like that's definitely a very popular one right now. And if you are someone who doesn't have much of a hobby and maybe you're on Instagram all the time, you will have definitely noticed that everyone's hobby is traveling because people love to post photos of themselves in fun locations where you are not so that you can look at them while you're in your 9-to-5 office job. Maybe I'm getting too personal. Anyway, so as I said, I looked into hobbies for this episode because I'm finding that I do have some hobbies, but I'm being reminded of the importance of them because I am so tempted to just come home from work and just watch TV. And that's what I think most people do. Like if you're coming home from work and you're able to work out and eat dinner and then like watch a show, you have accomplished many things. And not that I'm trying to cut that short. Of course you've achieved many things if you're able to do that. I mean, just being able to like work out like during your day is extremely important and valuable and has definitely been productive for many and for myself too, if I'm able to. But there has been research that has shown that people who have hobbies are generally healthier and have a lower risk of depression and dementia. So, although it's tempting to do some other activities, you might want to consider maybe swapping out an evening of doing those typical things like binge watching and instead pick up a hobby. It could help lower depression and possibly dementia. And again, there are many claims that I'm going to be talking about with hobbies, and I really don't feel that they are very far-fetched, because looking into a lot of these, a lot of different sources all agreed and all were just praising hobbies. I also found a lot of articles that were talking about the decline in hobbies, and not only just the decline in doing individualized hobbies, but also more social hobbies and hobbies that often involve like civic engagement, like joining a club, like bowling club or the gardening club, or I don't know, a local quilters group. Sometimes hobbies are social events along with individual things. So not only are we often cutting ourselves out of the opportunity to pick up a hobby, sometimes we're cutting ourselves out of the social aspect of a hobby, finding people who are like-minded and enjoy doing a similar thing together on your free time, you know. And I was really thinking about that because oftentimes, while things like Netflix can bring us together on social media, they also kind of don't pull us together in the same physical space all the time. And because of that, sometimes, you know, places where civic engagement happens, like a community center, just see fewer and fewer people, which I really do think is a shame. So, after my little spiel, I want to talk about some of the benefits of hobbies. And there are many, but they really are very good for you. So, for your health, I think you should look into it. So with hobbies, if you can designate an hour of your day, or even a few hours a week if you can, for something that you feel truly inspires or enlivens you, don't be surprised if some of the newfound zest from your hobby carries over into your work and family life. Because hobbies can often help you cope with stress. So let's say you're super stressed. You know, you've had a really rough day at the office. And sometimes when those things happen, you can come home either to your family or your roommates or just different friends. Maybe you're going out to dinner to see friends. Often being stressed from work can just travel over into your other activities and travel over, you know, to your time with the people that you care about. And, you know, perhaps you're stressed because you were at work and you were criticized by your boss or something. And it can be really tempting to just turn on the TV and just, you know, have it be a brief distraction. But really doing this and just trying to ignore the stress doesn't address other issues that could be related to the reason you're stressed, like a damaged ego, perhaps. Again, if you were like criticized at work or something. But then imagine that after you had your whole ordeal at work, you instead go to like a soccer league or a pottery class. And these activities are more than merely distracting because they can remind you that there are many facets of your self-concept. I mean, maybe you had a stressful day at work and, you know, you're an employee, but then also when you go to do these hobbies, you're someone else. You're an athlete or an artist, for example. And so maybe just one small blow to your self-concept, if you've had one bad day, your whole identity isn't gone because by doing hobbies, you're often reminded of the other things that you're capable of or the other things that you enjoy doing. And so really going into a hobby can help relieve the stress that might come with the idea that your identity and your ego might be damaged. And when I read this, I thought that was so powerful because not only are hobbies something that you can enjoy, but they can help define who you are. And I think sometimes we can struggle with the idea of having something else define us, you know, like we don't want to be defined just by what we do. We want to be defined by other characteristics of our personality. And not that I'm trying to say don't have that, but I'm just saying it could be interesting. I think being able to have something else that you can call yourself besides just maybe an employee when you get stressed, it can really help. And, maybe instead of just being a parent when you get stressed by that, you can go and do something else, and it can remind you of the other things that you're good at and the other parts of who you are. I think that's really powerful, and it's something about hobbies and about stress that I hadn't really thought of before. So before I continue reading more about the benefits of hobbies, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'll be right back and keep talking about hobbies.
Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. On today's episode, we are talking about hobbies, and I want to continue talking about some of the benefits of hobbies, including how hobbies can help you cope with stress. So another thing about hobbies is that engaging in a mentally stimulating hobby can reduce stress. And that is according to research by Matthew Zawadzki, and he is a health psychologist at the University of California in Merced. So Zawadzki's study has shown that leisure activities can provide immediate stress relief, which has been shown to have numerous health and psychological benefits like improved focus, happiness, and even a longer life. The benefits of engaging in a hobby extend to hours and even days later. Zawadzki's study finds that people with hobbies continue to be happier and to experience lower levels of depression and negative feelings after practice ends. Which, that's incredible, because if you're thinking about it, maybe, you enjoy the activity, the hobby, the fun, leisurely thing that you do while you're doing it. And it can reduce your stress, maybe while you're kicking a soccer ball around. But not only does it reduce your stress in the moment while you're doing the activity, but that stress relief can extend beyond just the activity for like hours or even days. And that's super important because sometimes if I'm feeling super cranky or just stressed, if I get to go and really embed myself in a project or in something that I really enjoy, maybe not to use TV, but people, enjoy reading books. That's a big hobby, or even audiobooks if you're not going to read them. But things like that can really help relieve stress, and it goes beyond just the moment. And I think that's particularly important when you're thinking of feeling refreshed, because that's how often I feel. I'll do a hobby and then I'll feel refreshed afterwards and kind of can approach situations with new vision. I'm not clouded by stress or feelings of fatigue from the day. So super important and super interesting. I feel like anecdotally, I've definitely felt that in my life. So Zawadzki says, we're still talking about the short term, but there was a definitive carryover effect later in the day. And he said this in a university publication. He continues, if we start thinking about that beneficial carryover effect day after day, year after year, it starts to make sense how leisure can improve health. And that makes sense. That's super important. The idea that leisure is good for you, not just it's something that you do, or it's just something that, you have to do because your office makes you take time off, which I will say, if your office makes you take time off, definitely take the time off because you have to be able to recharge. But anyway, going back to hobbies, the idea that a leisure activity is something that you commit to doing, like you do it once, but then you're also committing to continue it and continue trying and hopefully continue enjoying. But if you're doing that, the compound effect of possibly years of doing it can really help improve your long-term health. I think about this connected to like when people say to work out, it's good to just, even if you're just working out for like 20 minutes, just to be active. Even you don't have to go that hard, just go for a light jog or something, or a walk, something that you enjoy. The effects that can have on your long-term health have really been profound. And I think that's related. Like if you're thinking of living a healthy lifestyle, I really feel like I want to make a case for hobbies and being able to put that into your daily life. If, enjoyability and for stress relief, but also for your long-term health. It's really important. Okay, another study that I want to talk about. Another conclusion from a different study was similar to what Zawadzki said, and it was research that was published in the National Library of Medicine, and that research showed that regular leisure activities help a person manage negative feelings. So I started talking about stress, but not just stress, also negative feelings. I think I mentioned sort of like the idea of your identity being hit a little bit if certain things don't go your way. But I mean, I feel like depression also is super important. I mentioned that earlier. And also anxiety. I really feel like being able to embed yourself in an activity is super helpful for anxiety. Because sometimes activities that you're good at, you feel, at least I do, a personal sense of control, which can help when other things in your life may feel very out of control. Okay, moving on to another benefit. So hobbies can help you structure your time. There are many things in life that take time, but in general, things take as much time as you have. So when the evening stretches out before you, typically unscheduled, or maybe lucky you, it's unscheduled, you might find yourself laboring over a work project or the dreaded email box, and you may do that all into the wee hours of the night. And chances are, if you had choir practice or a book club meeting or some other hobby, if you had that already planned, you would get the other tasks done much more quickly. So those other emails that are definitely, maybe you just want to get ahead for the next day, not saying that's not important, but if you had some other commitment, some other hobby that you knew you had to do, probably the other tasks like those emails would get done faster because you have the motivation to get to the other thing. I guess to conclude that point, hobbies can seem to create more time by encouraging efficiency. I really feel this in my life. If I have something that I'm like, I have to do this, like it's something that I enjoy doing, where I can tell myself like, okay, I need to do this because it's good for me. Like maybe I want to work on some sort of art project, or I don't know, some like fun research, like research for the podcast. If I feel that I have to do that, often the other activities that also have to be done that are important but are more unenjoyable work activities, they go by faster because I feel I have to do them. So I get them quicker to get to the other activity that I want. Okay, moving on to another benefit. Hobbies promote flow. So often left to our own devices, we opt for passive leisure. And passive leisure is like watching TV or web surfing. And I feel like definitely those two things are at the top of most people's lists. And as I had mentioned at the beginning, many times we all do need to just relax, just veg out just from time to time. But often we are so much more invigorated by active leisure. You could also think of active leisure as like a flow activity, something that you can just really get into. And what I mean by like a flow activity, if you lose yourself in a sport or an art project or other challenging, absorbing activity, you've probably experienced flow. When that happens, like time flies, your self-consciousness disappears, and you're fully immersed in the activity at hand. And hobbies, especially those that stretch our skills, foster this desirable and increasingly elusive state. And I really do feel that like going to work, even if you like your work, often can seem very monotonous and I feel like sometimes my brain just kind of switches off, extremely repetitive tasks that I'm not necessarily enjoying. But if you're doing a flow activity, you can get into this rhythm. And I feel it just like it will help you stretch your skills. It'll help you, come to this very relaxed state. I guess I think about that maybe like the runner's high. I'm not sure if that's a good comparison, but I could see that. I've never experienced runner's high. Really not a runner. I just experienced runner's low, which is feeling really sick and super sweaty. But I could see it kind of being similar. I've definitely gotten that flow from hobbies, so thankfully I have that. Okay, another benefit. Hobbies can foster new social connections. So I mentioned that a lot of hobbies are solitary things that we do, but some of them do get us out into the community and you meet people that maybe you otherwise wouldn't, other people who share your passions, and that can help form new bonds with others around you. Countless studies have found that social connection is a key component of happiness and a meaningful life, and hobbies have the potential to create precious new ties. So people that maybe you wouldn't think you would connect to, you might be able to connect to because you guys have a shared passion and you do a hobby together. I feel like there's always that person you just see around town or on the bus or at the store, and you kind of know them, you kind of say hi, but maybe when you see them at the store and they haven't made eye contact yet, you kind of avoid them. But if that person were to show up at your pottery class, I would probably not be excited at first, but you might get to talking to them because you guys are sharing something that you both enjoy. And when that happens, probably you'll like the person more, even if you think your pot is better than theirs or something like that, and they made some weird looking thing in ceramics and you're like, well, whatever, that's their style. You never know. It could definitely form bonds, which I think is super important, especially because we're in a society where we're always looking at our phones and where we honestly sometimes feel more connected to the people on the other side of Instagram than the people who are sitting right next to us. So if you're doing a hobby in physical space with others, that will probably bring about some feelings of community, I would imagine. Okay, next benefit. And this one's kind of vain, but I think it's important. So hobbies can make you interesting. Hobbies give you something to talk about at parties or, in the office around the water cooler. They add layers to your identity and really richness to your self-concept. So honestly, people want to be around others who have passions and who have some sort of sense of curiosity and with stories to tell. I'm sure we all know those people at parties and things like that who you want to talk to because they're super interesting. I would hope that they're also good at talking to other people, they ask questions about other people's lives. But also, don't you want to be able to have those types of interesting stories and fun facts to share? I think that's really important because it adds to our self-concept and also to our self-confidence. If you feel like you're going into a social situation or even just a casual work, elevator talk situation where you feel that you have something to talk about besides just work, I think that can really boost your confidence just in your daily life. So not only do you feel more inspired when you have a rich and active lifestyle, you'll probably inspire others around you, which is pretty important. And I think, I always enjoy talking to people who have fun things to share. It kind of makes me feel encouraged, and it sort of brings me out of my shell to share fun things that I have going on in my life. So before I continue talking about hobbies, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Health and Wellness Podcast. We are continuing to talk about hobbies, and I want to keep sharing some of the benefits of having hobbies and how it can reflect in your life. Another benefit is that having hobbies can make your work performance better. So often, having a hobby outside of your work can help you perform better when you're in just a 9-to-5 type of situation. A study of 400 employees published in the Journal of Occupational and Organizational Psychology finds marked differences between those who engage in creative hobbies and those who do not. Having a creative hobby is associated with positive work-related traits like creativity on projects and even a better attitude on the job. Other research shows that employees with hobbies are more satisfied with their jobs and have a lower likelihood of burning out. Again, I would like to add the vacation thing. You should definitely take vacations if you have vacation time. You should take it. But you should do that and also have hobbies because both of those things can help you avoid the terrible work burnout. And I also read that there are companies like Facebook where if you interview, the interviewers want to know that you have hobbies because that really shows, at least I feel like, a really well-rounded person. So it might even help you get a job. I mean, that's not that surprising that like Facebook cares about that. I feel like all those big tech companies, like Google want to know that you have hobbies and whatnot, even though you're not going to be able to do them after you get a job in the tech industry because you're just going to be at like Google all the time working. But still, they're probably going to ask you, and it can help your work attitude, no matter where you are. Okay, another benefit that I want to talk about is improved physical health. So your hobby doesn't have to be physically demanding to correlate with your better health. And again, I already mentioned like studies have shown this can lead to longevity or decreased depression, decreased dementia cases. But also your physical health. A study has been conducted by several psychologists of about 1,400 people, and they found that people who said they engaged in an enjoyable leisure activity had lower blood pressure, total cortisol, wrist circumference, and body mass index. So honestly, they had lower blood pressure and I guess apparently better body mass index, which is pretty interesting. So not only does it make you feel mentally better, but sounds like it has pretty good physical effects, which is super important and really interesting. I'm not really sure how that works, but it's pretty cool. So I mean, really that means even like low movement hobbies like knitting, crafting, or playing guitar can all be connected to better physical health, which, yeah, that's pretty interesting. I feel like, man, if you're not convinced to pick up a hobby after this, I don't know what's going to help you. Okay, another benefit is that hobbies can make you become more patient. And this is really important. So in order to develop a new hobby, you have to learn to do something that is brand new to you. And the odds are that there will be a learning curve, and you will need to be patient in order to build your skills. And that's the thing that growing up was the most difficult for me with hobbies is like, I don't want to do something that I'm not good at. And odds are maybe you find that one hobby that you're naturally good at, but probably any other thing you want to do will take time and practice. And if you can put in the work and the patience to become good at this thing, that will probably carry over to the other things that you pick up in life. So super important. Okay, so I talked about the benefits, and now I want to talk about how you can make sure that you actually do the hobby. So, when you're trying to get a hobby, it's important that you schedule time for this in your lives, like tennis league every Monday night or a weekend bridge tournament. Just something that enables you to take a break, kind of like a break with permission. Like if you already are committed to doing this thing like every Monday night, then kind of when you say, oh, I'm going to put down the emails or I'm going to put away the laptop and do tennis or something like that, you kind of like have permission in a way. And I think that makes it easier mentally to turn off the other things you're doing and to pick up and start doing the hobby. So often, since you have signed up, like for a pottery class, you feel that you have to show up and you're kind of like forced to take a break. And some people really need the structure of their hobbies in their daily lives. Like you have to make sure you work it in on like a schedule, because sometimes if you don't do that, you feel kind of too guilty to take a break from work, which I definitely understand. I feel that. So it is important to set a routine. You have to carve out time and make it important initially. And you may have to give up some other things, like maybe you have to give up watching TV every night, or you may have to force yourself to leave the office a little bit earlier in the day. But if you're forcing yourself to do this by scheduling in the activity, you will be able to eventually get those health benefits and probably to help you with stress and with your work. You really want to try and make a hobby a priority. So try and set goals for yourself, maybe get a friend to support you, or maybe find someone who can start the hobby with you. It could be fun. I think, you don't have to just meet new people. You can bring in existing friendships into a fun hobby. And that way you're all into it. And then there's more for you guys to talk about. Also, when you're trying to find a hobby, not just working in the activity, working into your schedule, but also just to find a hobby, think about things that you've always wanted to do, like learning to knit or garden or play the piano. Maybe there's something that you used to love that you've stopped doing, because we've all had those things. You could reach out to an organization like a community choir or a softball team or a book club. Try and find the things that you enjoy doing. And we have the internet now, which sucks up so much of our time, but nonetheless, we have it, whether we want it or not. And you can use all of the resources online to help you find information about a hobby. Maybe you buy a kit to teach you how to embroider or something, or you join a club. So I know it sounds like it could be a bit difficult to start, but I feel convinced. I feel convinced to put more time into the hobbies that I enjoy doing. And not just for myself, but for my long-term health and really for the people around me, so that I'm not just super stressed. But also for me, because they're fun. So I really encourage you to take up some hobbies. I hope that you're convinced, and I hope that you don't hate me for telling you to stop watching TV all the time. Don't stop listening to podcasts, obviously. You should still do that. But thank you all so much for listening. That brings us to the end of our show, and I hope you can tune in to the next Health and Wellness podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.